A lot of people like to ask me, why is Zebec focused on payrolls? Now, nothing I say is financial advice, and while some people out there may think that it's kind of unimportant that Zebec is focused on that, I think sometimes the statistics would beg to differ a little bit in terms of why something like Zebec would even want to be focused on something like that to begin with. Because keep in mind, Zebec not too long ago, they made a post saying how the US payroll market is processing over 9 trillion annually. So over 9 trillion. The thing is, when it comes to a market size that massive, why wouldn't something like Zebec be focused on that? Now, is it going to ever become top 10? I highly doubt it, but we'll wait and see. But I'm just saying it doesn't even need to. When a market is that massive, seriously, like, even if it's like top 100, I wouldn't even be complaining. But this is just my perspective. When it comes to Zebec overall, it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, right? Being focused on payrolls, being focused on global trade and finance, being focused on the cards and all this. We're not talking about something that is so revolutionary, but it doesn't really need to, because I think Zebec as of right now is existing at a time when within this space, projects that are focused on global trade and finance just haven't really had that much competition as of late. And I think it's because of all the nonsense that we saw go on when it comes to the case, right? Like the case regarding Ripple, which I think something like that caused a lot of apprehension for a lot of developers that kind of want to enter into a space like that. But as a result, because not many developers wanted to enter, there simply wasn't that many options to kind of stick around, which is why I think late 2024, kind of throughout 2025, we saw the emergence of other projects within this space, right? Like a Onyx, like a Zebec, like Swiftcoin and all this, like XPR. I think at that moment in time, once the sentiment sort of became positive when it comes to the space, the alternatives began to emerge. But the thing is, because so few developers wanted to develop anything for quite a while, there's just not that many options right now in terms of the popular ones. So Zebec's just at a time when it's not facing such stiff competition. Because if I take a look at it, what is Zebec's most direct competitor? It's just Onyx. Like XPR and Swiftcoin is way smaller than Zebec, but Zebec's not overtaking like XDC or Stellar, right? So at the same time, it's pretty much just competing against Onyx. And it's not like Onyx is really reinventing the wheel either. The biggest thing they're planning to do is just launching a layer 1 blockchain in terms of the mainnet. That's it. Pretty much. I mean, they're also doing other things, but I'm saying that's kind of the most talked about thing. So when it comes to Zebec, it's like, for instance, many, many years ago, the only main competitor I could ever think of when it comes to Nokia is probably Motorola. But Nokia, it appeared at the right time, right? It was at a time when there was like no such thing as the iPhone at that point, when it was actually thriving. Then once the iPhone came out, we all know what happened. But I'm saying, back then, Nokia wasn't really competing against Apple. So we know what happened when it comes to Nokia, right? It did pretty okay. But the thing is, that's because at that time, the market was just a little bit early, in my perspective. I see it kind of in this case when it comes to Zebec. Zebec is at a stage where it doesn't need to be an iPhone. All it needs to be is a Nokia at this point, or a Motorola. That's kind of good enough at this point in time when it comes to this space. 5 years later, 10 years later, that's a different case. It's going to have to probably improve by a whole lot. But I'm saying as of right now, it doesn't really need to improve that much just because the competition isn't that stiff. There's massive competitors, but it's just like not that many in terms of the quantity. Imagine if there was like 30 different versions, or 30 of those Onyx archetypes that existed in terms of the projects. Zebec is going to get cooked, actually, if that's the case right now. Could you imagine if there was 30 versions of Onyx that was around 10 versions of like an XDC? Zebec at that point, it's probably going to be cooked. Deep fried, steamed, roasted, toasted, whatever the case may be, right? It would have nowhere near the market cap it would have as of right now. But actually, it doesn't have that. There seemingly isn't that much competition. So, again, sure, it may not be the best project of all time. It's not doing the most things of all time in terms of the development and all this, but it doesn't really need to, because it's at a point in time where it just doesn't have that many competitors. So yes, ZBCN is around 29.5 times lower than 10 cents. So the recovery has been pretty okay actually as of late, but market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply would be around 9.7 billion at 10 cents. And the thing is this, remember not too long ago when Zebec released its kind of like updated tokenomics, they were talking about how they were going to be using like the revenue from their Zebec products to kind of reacquire ZBCN in theory, right? In doing that, and let's say the products become more successful and they have more revenue or whatever, who knows, right? And if let's say that circulating supply becomes lower when it comes to ZBCN, becomes a little bit more rare in theory, would that be such a bad thing when it comes to Zebec? I hypothetically maybe don't think so. This is just a hypothetical thought in my perspective, though, but yeah, this is just my mindset. And in theory as well, like if the circulating supply is actually lower, the volume needed to attain hypothetically 10 cents may be hypothetically in theory also lower, right? Because the lower the circulating supply, the less of a market cap it would hypothetically need in order to maybe reach 10 cents, I suppose. But yeah, besides that point though, when I take a look at Zebec as well, I like how, again, it has an aspect of Solana, which I get it. People like to say, who's going to care about Solana? There's already something like Ethereum. Well, people like options sometimes. Is there only Toyota in this world? No, there's many car brands out there. Is there only the iPhone? No, right? I mean, there's a bunch of phone brands out there as well. So the thing is, sometimes people do like options. And I think when it comes to this space, sometimes it feels a little bit no different. So if Solana, for whatever reason, has some sort of traction during an altcoin season, Zebec kind of maybe, who knows, goes along with the ride, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me considering how it was even top 10 not too long ago when it comes to utility in terms of Solana. So yeah, when it comes to Zebec, sure, I mean, I'm just one individual. When it comes to the amount of holders, there's like over 60,000, over 70,000. Like, I can't do anything about this. This is only me. I'm just one individual. The only thing I can do is actually just stay patient, and that's about it. I mean, I like the slight recovery that ZBCN has of late, but it's still a far cry, right? From where it once was just less than a year ago when the market cap was around 500 million. We're still a lot lower than that, but in the grand scheme of things, it's whatever. I feel like, to me at least, I'm just going to wait it out and see what happens because I don't think I've seen an altcoin season, but I'm not telling anyone to do anything. This is just personally my perspective as of right now. I wanted to make this updated video primarily to kind of address how a lot of people seem to think that Zebec's focused on not such a cool thing. And I get it. It may not be the coolest thing out there. It's like, whatever, right? But in terms of why it's focused on payrolls, I think there's a good reasoning behind that, which I mentioned earlier in the video, that statistic I mentioned. So I think it kind of makes sense what Zebec's focused on, but generally speaking, Zebec's not only focused on that. Like, again, I mentioned earlier in the video that it's focused on a bunch of different things. So I still like it overall, but yeah, again, I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day, and I'll be sure to make more updated videos when it comes to Zebec moving forward. So I'll see you all in the next one.